Welcome to the Discover Virginia Beach podcast. I'm joined today with a super special guest, Debbie Burke. Now, for those of you who don't know Debbie, I actually connected her through our Discover Virginia Beach Facebook group. She is an award-winning author of 9 books, including the jazz novels Death by Saxophone and Icarus Flies Home and Glissando, A Story of Love, Lust, and Jazz. And tons of nonfiction interviews, videos, and we were able to borrow some of her time. Debbie, thank you for being here today for the podcast.
It's amazing to be here, Joe. Thanks for inviting me on your podcast.
Wonderful. So Debbie, I understand just a little bit of bio for those of you who don't know Debbie. So Debbie, you are a former news writer, columnist, and business journal editor, correct? And then you turned into writing your own novels and published some of your own works. And now you're doing the self-publishing journey through Queen Esther Publishing, LLC, correct?
That's right. I started out I have an interesting journey in publishing, having started Vanity Press, which is kind of a dirty word, which means you're pay for play. And that was just to get my first book out, and it was well worth it. When an author who's brand new sees their book out for the first time and holds it for the first time, it's one of the great thrills of life, I have to say. So through the years, I've been traditionally published after that, and I just decided to teach it to myself to self-publish in order to have all the creative control over everything from my title to my cover art to what's in between the covers, my story. So Yep.
Wonderful. Well, before we get into the business section of your life and where people can go to find more about you, I kind of want to take a step back here because this group, Discover Virginia Beach, is blowing up on Facebook, and now we have the podcast. And so, want to kind of catch everybody up to speed here. So the folks here that we talk to, we want to get as much of a spotlight on the Virginia Beach area as we can. And it's such a big area. I mean, it's actually, most people don't know this. It's a community of over 7 different cities, 1 million different people who live in this collective area known as Hampton Roads, the Tidewater region. I know when you fly into Norfolk International Airport, they're like, welcome to Norfolk, and they don't even know how to pronounce the name because there's so many different variations of this community. So super excited to kind of maybe take a snapshot with us, Debbie. How did you end up in Hampton Roads, Virginia? What attracted you to the Virginia Beach area? And what's going on with that? What brought you to the area?
Yeah, well, great question. I don't know if you could tell from talking to me, but I'm a Brooklyn girl. I was raised and lived in Brooklyn for my first 20 some odd years. And my husband and I have traveled and lived throughout the East Coast. He's not military, but we've just done a bunch of moving, mostly the Northeast. And there came a time when we wanted to get out of the Northeast cold and winters and interstate closures and all that kind of stuff. So we actually went all the way down to Alabama. Yes, Alabama, which was quite different culturally, but beautiful, wonderful. We were there for over 2 years. I had a great job, great friends, and too hot there. So we decided to split the difference. And we'd been to Virginia Beach before. In fact, I was here when my first child was like 1.5, and I have pictures and right on the boardwalk. And I'm like, wow, I really love that place. And we looked into it, and he got a job around here, and we just decided to make the move. So we're not too far from shuttling up to the Northeast for my family. He's got family in Charleston. It's just very centrally located. And I think our core requirement was to be somewhere that we could get to the ocean, having grown up by Coney Island, Manhattan Beach, and Jones Beach and all that kind of stuff, and just love the ocean town vibe. So we're here to stay. Definitely.
Wonderful. Yeah. And I know Virginia Beach is so interestingly positioned because you have this same story. I talk with people who are either relocating or retiring or just visiting this area, just trying to figure it out. And I'm like, you are literally in the middle of the East Coast. I mean, if you got family up north, I hear a lot of people from upstate New York area. It's just cold. It's not the weather conditions they want. But then if they go too far down south to like Atlanta, Georgia, Florida area, it's too hot. It's muggy. And there's way too many alligators. Let's face it. There's no alligators here. We got nice dolphins. Yeah. So it's a great middle. Right.
That's exactly right. I love seeing the dolphin. When we first started walking on the boardwalk, we would go early mornings and Oh my God. You don't see dolphins in Brooklyn, so it's amazing.
Yeah, awesome. Well, and that's I appreciate you sharing that, Debbie. And that's what a lot of people are looking to discover about the Virginia Beach area is just to really figure out what it all has to offer. So I have a really fun question, an icebreaker question.
Okay.
Debbie, we've talked several times, but I want to kind of pose this to the audience as well because it's super fun to kind of like figure out what type of community aspects you're looking for. So enlighten me here, entertain me here, Debbie. I'm going to ask you a fun little question. So picture yourself as the mayor of a fantastical town, right?
Mhm.
How would you encourage the community engagement and create a magical atmosphere where everyone feels connected and eager to participate? And I'll just preface this with looking at it from the lens of Virginia Beach as well, because it is a magical place.
It is just by itself, just by being what it is. I think my focus has always been on the arts in bringing people together, and there is a huge arts vibe, which was a big magnet for us to be here, quite honestly. So, and I mean everything from to art shows to indie artists to the mural, the whole Vibe District, and all the pockets of artists and collectives throughout the 7 cities, including Norfolk as well. So I'd say arts definitely bring people together, and they're not just to look at as if in a museum piece, but they're very interactive. Even some of our museums, they'll have community events and glass blowing demonstrations and all the kind of things that you want to do kind of hands on.
No,
That would be my
absolutely, Debbie.
response.
Yeah, you touched on some great things. And just a friendly reminder, if you haven't checked out the Vibe Creative District, that's VIBE Creative District, on their website, they have a free map that actually, and Debbie, you probably know about this, it highlights all of the free murals that you can go and visit. And they also do guided tours during the summer. So if you're planning a vacation in the area and you want to check out that art scene and check out some murals, that's a free resource for you. It's just on Google or check the show notes down in the description below, and I'll post that in there for you guys. So Debbie, I know you touched on the arts, and I am really, really interested to get into this more because you've been featured on radio stations and other podcasts about health and wellness and the importance of music. So tell me a little bit more about your musical career. And I'm losing track here, so let me make sure I'm looking at my notes here to make sure I cover all the wonderful stuff you have. So I would love for you to kind of give us a snapshot about your introduction to music and then how it's kind of played a role in your personal life.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I've made it my kind of life's purpose to immerse myself in it, to be participating in it, and to write about it. So, in the New York City school system, you start out with some, I don't know what kind of music programming they have now in curriculums, but coming up as a kid, you learn some of the basic instruments. You learned, tonette and recorder. I did clarinet. I did tuba for a little while, and found that was too big to handle, and I didn't have the embouchure.
Tuba is a pretty intimidating instrument right
yeah.
there. How much does a tuba weigh? Is that like 50 pounds? 100 pounds?
It feels like it. And when you're 12 and trying to handle it, it's a little difficult. They realized that was not a good match for me.
You have to sign up for the bodybuilding class and then also play the tuba simultaneously, right? You can't.
Right.
You got to do both, right?
You could do that. You could try. Then I got into violin, and I stayed with that for quite a few years. And I actually became first chair of the second violin section in Midwood High School, which to me it's bragging rights. So I'm very happy.
That's a big deal. I mean, for those don't undersell yourself, Debbie. For those of you who aren't familiar with the musical aspect, first chair means you went and competed against schools in your region, right?
Yeah,
schools in your area, and that's probably what 5 to 20,000 kid range, depending on who's in band and stuff. So first chair means that Debbie was able to outrank not only those at her school, but also those in the other regions. So I don't know why I'm explaining chairs, but it's definitely being a fourth chair choir tenor boy. It's bragging rights. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, thank you for that. In my early 20s, I went through a difficult relationship. And when I came out the other side of it, I decided that I was going to do something I've always wanted to do as a treat to myself, which is learn saxophone. So what I did was I went to, at the time was the 80s, I went to New York City, Manny's, which is no longer there, Manny's Instruments, and I bought the cheapest sax that I could afford and started lessons at the New School for Social Research. It's now called the New School, and it's very much expanded its curriculum, but I took private lessons there and just loved it. So I had the sax, and then I met my husband and then raised kids, and the sax was, under the stairs in the case and just forgotten about. And my son was just learning to play trombone in grade school, and he said, "Why don't you take out your saxophone and, play it? And so, you should play it." So we were in Northeast PA at the time, and I looked around and I found there was a community band. Now we have a Tidewater community, Winds, I think it's called.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so you can play, and even if you don't have to be professional, if you're a community member, and sometimes there's an audition. So what I did was I just joined the band up in Northeast PA. It was associated with East Stroudsburg University, and I started playing, sax with them, and did that for 8 years, and that was so much fun. I mean, just a community of people, like-minded people who love music like I did. And that creatively led to me writing my first book, because the more I learned about jazz,
Yeah.
I found out that there were a couple of very famous people living in that area, which was called Delaware Water Gap. So if you've heard of Phil Woods, who's no longer with us, I think he passed in 2015. He did that sax break in Just the Way You Are by Billy Joel. And, that's on the pop side, but he's very accomplished.
Yeah, that's a big
famous.
deal. Yeah.
Yep. So he lived there as some others in the jazz scene. And I just decided I wanted to find out if there was a book about. And come to find out, and a lot of authors are going to tell you this, that the original inspiration for a book is to write something because they found that there was no book written on it. And that's just what happened with me. I was looking for a book, nobody had written it, and I said, well, why not? So I did. So that was the start. That was my first book. And
you had writing experience at that point, right?
Yeah.
You had the columnist and the journal editing. But I want to kind of bring this around full circle with you. So Debbie, you had your son had started in band. You hadn't touched a saxophone in how many years before he had
Let's see. And from age 27 to, I don't know, maybe it was a good 10, 11 years.
So 10 years you hadn't touched it.
I hadn't touched it. My embouchure was shot. My posture was, horrific. And, but I was just like, I paid for this thing. I mean, I think musical instruments are actually beautiful objects. And you fall in love with your instruments, I think.
Like its own art piece, right? You'd say?
Yeah. And it was a good point. Why is it in a closet? So that just inspired me to start using it.
Wow. It's such a testament to just how evasive things can be as time progresses, right? Because you hadn't thought about it, and then we have these people enter in our lives here, and you're probably in a different stage of life too from when you first purchased that saxophone. And I just I think a lot of people in this group are in that same position, maybe not with a saxophone under the stairs, but maybe they're in a position in life where they're there's that thing under your staircase that you haven't touched or thought about.
Right.
And you're looking for some inspiration, some insight, or maybe, from the mouth of the babes, so to speak, to say, hey, why don't you pick up that saxophone, try again? So I love that little moment there, Debbie, when you were just like, why don't I have this? It's beautiful. Why wouldn't I want to do this? And so picking it up, and I'm sure that was a tough 8 years of playing and relearning and figuring out posture, but on the output of it, it actually led you to where you are now for writing the book and things of that nature. I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves with the business, but I just wanted to pause in that moment because that's something really cool. I think we kind of miss out on life in general. Is there are moments where it's okay to pause and put stuff under the staircase, but regardless of what season and stage or age in life, you can still pick those things up again. Yeah. So
absolutely. I mean, you got to figure I was 51 when I wrote my first book. So, and I was in my late 40s when I joined the band. So, it's never too late. And even if you put things off, life circumstances, having kids, raising a family, having to work two jobs or whatever, there is time, bookmark it in your head to come back to it, because if you have something you love to do, I mean, that's what life is all about.
Yeah. And indeed, there are so many bookmarks here in the Virginia Beach area where people can pick up on, start new adventures or continue adventures alike. So Debbie, I want to dive into the other role music played. And that is going to be not just for your personal life, but also for your business life as well. Because I know there's a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs in our group and people who are owning a business or starting a business, trying to navigate through that. So Debbie, would you mind shedding some light for us on how music inspired your business life?
Yeah, sure. Well, music inspired my author's journey, and that turned into my business model, because as a writer, you want to make your book the best it could be. And I've always written and or been an editor, news writer, like you said, all that kind of stuff. And I thought, what would it be like to, instead of editing newspaper articles and things like that, what if I helped other authors make their dream come true? So when we moved here about 3 years ago now, and don't forget, it was still, pandemic lockdown, and people were just starting to get out. Strangely enough, there was a spike in something that I could never have projected or anticipated. And that is that people who were home under lockdown weren't twiddling their thumbs. They instead, a lot of them got busy doing those things with the instrument under the, in the closet, those kind of things that they pulled out and revisited, including writing their book that they've always wanted to write. And so I run Queen Esther Publishing, and that is editorial services, author coaching, and so on. The spike in people who have always wanted to write and decided to write just then during lockdown was just incredible. And I was just through Facebook groups and other LinkedIn, and also locally, I got introduced to people who either were in the middle of writing their book or just had finished and needed to know how to produce it and self-publish, how to get this out there.
Sure.
So that became my idea for, my business model was to help people make their book dreams come true.
Wow, that's so incredible too, because we think back to pandemic times, which regardless of your outward feelings towards it, it was a pause. It was a pause moment for the world really to kind of like in a lot of ways assess where we are, lives and our jobs and things like that. So that's really cool. That really cool is an understatement. It's very impressive how you utilized that time to leverage your skill set in not only writing, but also your passion for music. So very impressed by that. And
Thank
also too, it's just like really cool to because the first time I heard jazz, I was hanging out with my cousin, who's 20 years older than me. So I believe jazz is in a lot of ways a generational thing that has yet to be passed on to the next generation. Jazz gets a bad rap. That's what I'm getting at here. So Debbie, I'd love to know from you, I have a very specific question for you. Jazz has such a rich history, and it has evolved over the years. I want to ask you, what aspects of jazz's evolution do you find most intriguing or exciting? And this is for those of you who understand jazz, you appreciate it. For those of you who are like, why are you talking about jazz? What does this have to do about? Debbie, let us know what's intriguing and exciting about the evolution of jazz throughout the years.
Well, really, what to me defines jazz is the improvisatory aspect of it, meaning, somebody has written a song and you play along to the song, and you either have sheet music or you've committed it to memory. And whether you play solo or in an informal group or sing in church or whatever, someone has written that music. Well, in jazz, I think the most exciting evolution is how prominent a place improvisation has in that role. And that is improv, meaning you go off and do your solo and you're not sticking to the actual, just the straight melody of the music. You're riffing off that. And every single performance or every single time you play that or sing that, it's slightly different. That's what I love about it. It's organic, it's living, it's reactive to the audience that is playing to, as well as the feelings that are coming out of the instrumentalist or the vocalist. And that's how I think people have to look at jazz, not just, I don't know enough about it, or it's too, oh, it's snobby or whatever. It's just a bunch of great rhythms, great melodies, and Kate off on his own and just riffing off and just getting into like flow with it. And that's what I think is so wonderful and life affirming about jazz.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I mean, you couldn't have said it better yourself, Debbie. I mean, it's that rhythm and flow of, that those different stages of life, and the impromptu. Impromptu is, I'm not even sure if that's a word. The more impromptu it can be, it just kind of allows it to expand and evolve, which is just one of the beautiful things about music in general. Would you mind telling us, Debbie, of a time you felt an experience, or describe an experience about how jazz might have inspired you or kind of led you down a pathway of either, a deep thought or inspiration, or something along those lines?
Well, jazz definitely, imparts a mood. And because there are so many things going on, sometimes with jazz, you kind of pick out what you like to follow, but each time you listen, it could be new. So I think for me, what really inspires me about it is to hear the individual expression of it. And also, they're not just like car horns honking. There's a reason for it, and there's a reason for the ensemble being together. And I think each time I hear it, especially live, there's no comparison between live music and just hearing a CD, which could be very well produced. Right. But live music has that extra element of, what, today it's a gloomy day, and the musicians are going to play accordingly, or maybe it's beautiful and sunny and they're going to play differently. So I think that's what
you're in it with the musician at that moment.
You're in it with them. Yeah, it's participatory in that way, because they're not playing in a studio and recording it. They're playing to live people who are receiving in their own way.
Yeah. Wow. It's such a unique genre in the sense of just how fluid it is, yet it's very, it's music, right? So there's the notes, there's the melodies, there's the patterns you follow, but just how freehand it can be. I think of it like, if I'm thinking of text and writing, very simple example here, you have your text writing, which is like your piano keys, your C and your G chord and whatnot. And then you have, your jazz, which is kind of like that cursive writing, that extra font that adds those loops and those sways to kind of bring the music together.
That's a beautiful way to say it, Joe. I like that.
Yeah, I mean that's just how I look at it, and it's just really cool to see how jazz has played a part in your life and also in your business. And I see we're coming up on our time here, Debbie. So I want to give you the floor here, and I want to see if you have any recommendations. And so we typically end the podcast each show by asking somebody in their field what exactly people can go and experience or discover more about the certain topic. So for you, Debbie, because you are ingrained in the jazz culture here in Virginia Beach area and the live music, what are maybe some of your top recommendations for places to go hear and see live jazz, or just live music in general where jazz might be present?
Yeah, well, I can only tell you kind of the tip of the iceberg things, because there's just so much. The seven cities has so much.
Next thing is where people can learn to find more about you. So we'll start with that. And then if people want to learn more about you or have you back on the show, on the podcast, we'll definitely let us know in the comments below.
Oh, great. So, I mean, I've been to the Sandler Center for the Arts, the Attucks Theater, which is just a beautiful venue, the Norfolk Waterfront Jazz Festival, which is coming up in August. And those are some of the ones I've been to and just love it. Some of the ones I have yet to explore are clubs like, Gershwin's, Chrysler Hall, Harrison Opera House, the Wells Theater. And I'm on so many Facebook groups of local, music that I would go broke if I went to everything that I really wanted to. But there's no lack of culture in this area. That's another one of the big selling reasons for me. There's always something to see and to listen to.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, Debbie, thanks so much for being on the podcast today. As we kind of wrap up our conversation here today, I would love to encourage people to go and explore your pages, explore what you have going on. So, Debbie, where's the best place people can go to reach out to you to find out about your books and find out about everything that you got going on, jazz and otherwise?
Well, that's great. Thanks for asking, Joe. It's DebbieBurkeAuthor.com. So DebbieBurke, author.com. There is another Debbie Burke author who has a different website, and she and I do not both write about jazz. She's wonderful, and we became friends because
okay.
of
I was
the
about
name.
to say, if you have an online enemy here, Debbie, we can definitely make some more content. But if she's cool,
No, she's very cool.
Distinguish between
She's
the
wonderful.
two. Yeah.
And my book link is over there. If you go on Amazon at Amazon Books and just look up Debbie Burke Jazz, I have 9 books out. I have another work in progress, and then a novel for 2024. Or you can just email me, debcolumn@gmail.com.
Wonderful. Well, Debbie, thanks for sharing that. And I see here my Zoom reminder is here. Your free meeting will end soon. Okay. So with that said, Debbie, I understand prior to this call, you were super excited to chat with our audience here at the Discover Virginia Beach Facebook group and those people looking to discover Virginia Beach. And you were very generous to offer a promotion for a copy of your book. Does that still stand for the summer of 2023? Just wanted to
Absolutely. I have 3 novels out, and Joe, you and I will discuss which one you think is best, or all 3.
Perfect.
Happy to sign them and give them away.
What I'll do, I'd love to give out a signed copy of the book, and this will be published summer of 2023. So go ahead and like and comment on this video if you're watching the video format, summer 2023. And you must be subscribed to the Discover Virginia Beach Facebook group, and be sure to go over and follow Debbie as well on her social channels. If you don't know where they are, check the link in the show notes or the description below, and you will be instantly entered for that raffle giveaway this summer 2023. And if you want to hear more from Debbie, go follow her on the channel and let us know in the comments. Show her some love. Let us know if you'd like to have her back, and we'd love to continue this conversation for you all in another great piece of content. Debbie, thank you so much.
Joe, thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.